to truly grasp the essence of mastering the mind before confronting the world. One must first acknowledge that the mind is not merely a vessel of thought, but the sovereign of perception, the silent architect of every experience we claim as reality. Marcus Aurelius, in his timeless reflections, urges us to understand that events themselves carry no intrinsic weight, no inherent joy or sorrow. They are inert, unfeeling, like stones cast upon the river of life. It is our perception, our judgment, our mental lens that imbues them with significance. Those who achieve greatness, who navigate the tumult of existence with grace and effectiveness, recognize this principle and make it the cornerstone of their daily practice. They do not allow external circumstances to dictate the contours of their inner state. They realize that the storm outside may rage with ferocity, yet within the mind, the storm can be met with equanimity, with clarity, with resolute calm. The mastery of the mind begins with awareness, a vigilant observation of thought and impulse. It requires a discerning attention that does not flinch at the rawness of emotions or the turbulence of desire. Every angered response, every pang of envy, every whisper of doubt is an opportunity for the mind to exercise sovereignty. The Stoic understands that these impulses are not commands but invitations, moments to choose deliberation over reflex, wisdom over instinct, patience over reaction. To cultivate such mastery is to build a fortress of thought, one where reason presides and emotion is neither suppressed nor enslaved but harmonized with the higher faculties of judgment and insight. In this domain, the individual can survey the world with unshakable composure, perceiving events in their true measure, uncolored by caprice, undistorted by fear. Consider how easily the untrained mind succumbs to the illusions of circumstance. Wealth, praise, misfortune, and insult seem to carry intrinsic power over the spirit. Yet in truth, they are ephemeral echoes, transient winds that cannot touch the core of a disciplined consciousness. The successful individual discerns between what is merely external and what belongs to the sovereign realm of the mind. By anchoring themselves in reason and virtue, they render themselves impervious to the superficial turbulence of life. When others are flung into despair or intoxicated with fleeting triumphs, the Stoic remains anchored, perceiving both fortune and misfortune as teachers, both applause and censure as phenomena to be met with equanimity, neither chased nor feared. This does not denote passivity or detachment in the sense of indifference, but a profound engagement with reality, a recognition that the true arena of victory lies not in altering events, but in mastering perception. Response and intention dot the process of mastering the mind is painstaking, a daily exercise in vigilance and discipline. One begins by observing the automatic tendencies that arise in thought, the instinct to judge, to compare, to react with haste or resentment. These tendencies, left unchecked, cloud judgment, distort perception, and chain the individual to the volatile currents of circumstance. Through deliberate reflection, the mind learns to pause, to examine, to deliberate. It cultivates the capacity to respond rather than react, to act in alignment with reason and principle rather than impulse and desire. Over time, this conscious engagement reshapes the neural pathways of thought, instilling habitual clarity that becomes second nature. What was once a reflexive outburst becomes a measured response. What was once a moment of panic becomes an opportunity for strategic insight. In mastering the mind, one cultivates freedom, the rare, exquisite freedom to live unshaken amidst the oscillations of fortune. Marcus Aurelius exhorted himself to live with such discipline, not for the applause of others, nor for temporal reward, but because mastery of the mind is the foundation upon which all true achievement rests. To confront the world without first mastering one's own inner domain is to engage in battle with one hand tied, to navigate tempestuous seas without a compass. Those who have cultivated inner sovereignty approach life with a deliberate cadence, aware of their intentions, mindful of the impressions they accept, and rigorous in the discernment of thought. They recognize that the mind, when disciplined, becomes a lens through which every challenge, every encounter, every fortune is transformed into opportunity for growth, clarity, and effective action. To master the mind is to embrace an enduring paradox. One must cultivate detachment without indifference, discipline without rigidity, awareness without obsession. It is a state in which the mind is alert and engaged, yet unshaken by the superficial distractions of fame, wealth, or calamity. It is the art of perceiving reality in its raw, unembellished form while remaining fully present, fully capable of acting with intention and integrity. The individual who attains this mastery approaches every day as a measured, deliberate endeavor, treating thought as material to be shaped, emotion as energy to be guided, and perception as a lens to be refined. Every morning, every interaction, every challenge becomes a crucible in which the mind is tested, strengthened, and refined. When insult is hurled, the mind does not recoil or retaliate with impulsive anger. It observes, interprets, and responds with a measured clarity that preserves both dignity and purpose. When fortune smiles, the mind does not become intoxicated with pride or attachment. It observes with gratitude, yet remains anchored in principle. Even in the midst of chaos, the individual who masters the mind perceives patterns, discerns lessons, and acts with deliberate, strategic intention. Mastering the mind before confronting the world also entails understanding the impermanence of thoughts and emotions. A passing irritation, a fleeting disappointment, a transient desire, they are all waves upon the surface of consciousness. To mistake them for reality is to surrender control. The Stoic cultivates a vigilant awareness of the transitory nature of mental phenomena, recognizing that mastery arises not from suppressing these experiences, but from engaging with them consciously, guiding them with reason and allowing them to pass without undue attachment. This practice, repeated relentlessly, fosters an inner stability that no external circumstance can erode, a calm composure that is as unassailable as it is liberating. In essence, the mastery of the mind is the prelude to all meaningful action. It is the quiet, invisible labor that underpins visible achievement, the inner discipline that transforms ordinary endeavor into extraordinary impact. Those who cultivate this habit of inner sovereignty approach life with a resilience and clarity that distinguishes them from the reactive, the distracted, the enslaved. They recognize that while they cannot command the world, they can command themselves. That while fortune is capricious, the mind, once disciplined, is steadfast. And that the highest form of power is not the power to control events, but the power to govern perception, to guide thought, and to act with deliberate, unwavering intention. By mastering the mind before engaging with the external world, the individual creates a foundation upon which every other habit of success can be built. A stable, luminous ground from which virtue, productivity, and fulfillment naturally arise. To engage in ruthless self-reflection is to stand before the mirror of the soul with unwavering honesty, to examine every thought, every impulse, every decision as though one were both sculptor and sculpture, both observer and observed. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, turned daily to this inner audit, not seeking approbation or external validation, but to confront himself with uncompromising scrutiny. The habit of self-reflection is not gentle or comfortable. It is piercing, exacting, and unflinching. It is the deliberate act of illuminating the hidden corners of the mind where complacency, pride, and unnoticed error reside. Those who cultivate this practice understand that true success is born not from fleeting triumphs, but from relentless honesty with oneself, the courage to perceive one's weaknesses without disguise, and the disciplined pursuit of continuous improvement. Ruthless self-reflection demands that one dismantle illusions with precision and patience. The mind, if left unexamined, tends to construct narratives that flatter, excuse, or obscure. We imagine ourselves braver, wiser, more virtuous than we are. We justify failures, inflate successes, and disguise mediocrity as competence. The Stoic does not permit such self-deception. Each day, each action, each thought is scrutinized. The successful individual asks, without hesitation or excuse, did I act with integrity? Did I allow anger, envy, or fear to dictate my behavior? Did I seize the opportunity to act wisely, or did I squander it in idle distraction? By confronting these questions, the mind develops clarity, the conscience sharpens, and character is tempered like steel in fire. The practice of self-reflection is both intimate and disciplined, a daily ritual in which the mind converses with itself with piercing lucidity. It is not sufficient to merely recall events or thoughts. One must interrogate them. One must trace the origin of impulses, map the pathways of decision, and uncover the hidden motives behind actions. This requires patience, for the layers of habit and self-delusion are intricate, woven through years of unconscious thought. It requires courage, for the truths that emerge are often uncomfortable, demanding acknowledgement of failure, recklessness, or moments of moral compromise. Yet within this discomfort lies the transformative power of self-awareness. To face oneself without flinching is to cultivate a mind capable of measured, deliberate, and virtuous action, capable of navigating the complexities of life with authenticity and wisdom. Ruthless self-reflection also entails the meticulous recording of one's inner life, a habit Marcus Aurelius exemplified in the Meditations. Writing, journaling, or even deliberate contemplation serves as a mirror, revealing patterns invisible to the casual observer. Through this reflection, the mind becomes a laboratory where thoughts are tested, motives are analyzed, and weaknesses are exposed. Without such vigilance, one drifts through life at the mercy of unexamined impulses, susceptible to the seductions of pride, anger, and fear. With it, one cultivates the ability to recognize error at its inception, to correct course before deviation becomes entrenched. And to practice ruthless self-reflection is to enter the quiet courtroom of one's own conscience, where excuses possess no authority and illusions hold no refuge. It is the deliberate act of placing one's thoughts, actions, motives, and habits beneath the piercing light of honesty. Marcus Aurelius treated this internal examination as a daily discipline, a silent dialogue between the man he was and the man he intended to become. In that private space of contemplation, there was no audience to impress, no reputation to protect, only the relentless pursuit of clarity and moral refinement. The habit of examining oneself with such intensity demands courage, because the mind often prefers comfort over truth, pride over correction, and justification over growth. The unexamined mind is naturally inclined towards self-flattery. It builds quiet narratives that defend its weaknesses and disguise its errors. A person may convince himself that impatience is efficiency, that arrogance is confidence, that procrastination is careful planning. Without reflection, these distortions harden into habits, and habits quietly shape character. Ruthless self-reflection dismantles these comforting illusions. It asks questions that pierce through vanity. Why did I react with anger? Why did envy arise in my thoughts? Why did fear silence my courage in that moment? Each question becomes a lantern illuminating the hidden corridors of the inner world. This practice demands attentiveness to the subtle architecture of the mind. Every action originates as a thought. Every decision emerges from a chain of internal reasoning, and every reaction is shaped by unnoticed impulses. The reflective individual learns to trace these chains backward, uncovering the motives behind behavior. Instead of merely acknowledging that a mistake occurred, the reflective mind investigates its origin. Was the error born from impatience, pride, insecurity, or distraction? Understanding the root of behavior transforms mistakes into instruction. Weakness becomes a teacher rather than a source of shame. The discipline of reflection also cultivates intellectual humility. When a person examines himself with sincerity, he quickly discovers the limits of his own wisdom. He observes how easily emotions distort judgment, how swiftly ego interferes with fairness, how frequently impulse overrides reason. This awareness softens arrogance and strengthens discernment. A reflective mind does not rush to declare certainty. It pauses, evaluates, and considers alternative perspectives. Such humility becomes a source of strength because it opens the door to learning. The mind that accepts its imperfections remains flexible, curious, and receptive to improvement. Marcus Aurelius frequently returned to reflection during the quiet hours of solitude, when the noise of the world faded and the voice of conscience could speak clearly. Reflection flourishes in these moments of deliberate stillness. When the mind withdraws from distraction, it begins to observe itself with greater precision. Thoughts become visible patterns rather than chaotic impulses. Emotions reveal their origins. Decisions can be studied without the urgency of immediate action. In this contemplative state, a person becomes both observer and student of his own character. Through consistent reflection, to focus only on what lies within one's control is to liberate the mind from the exhausting chaos of the world and anchor it within the realm where true power quietly resides. Marcus Aurelius understood with crystalline clarity that the majority of human suffering originates not from events themselves, but from the futile struggle to command forces that were never ours to command. The weather shifts without consultation. Opinions arise in the minds of others without permission. Fortune wanders unpredictably between prosperity and hardship. Yet within this vast uncertainty, there exists a small but sacred territory that belongs entirely to the individual. Thoughts, intentions, judgments, and actions. The Stoic recognizes this boundary with remarkable precision and dedicates every ounce of attention to governing that inner territory with discipline and wisdom. The untrained mind habitually scatters its energy across countless concerns that lie far beyond its reach. It worries about the approval of strangers, the unpredictability of the future, the reputation whispered among distant observers, the outcomes of circumstances shaped by innumerable variables. This restless fixation produces anxiety, resentment, and exhaustion. A person may spend entire days attempting to manipulate impressions, influence opinions, or anticipate unpredictable events, only to discover that the world remains stubbornly independent. The Stoic response is not frustration but clarity. Instead of wrestling with the uncontrollable, the disciplined mind gently withdraws its attention from those turbulent waters and redirects it toward the domain of personal conduct. Within that domain resides extraordinary authority. One cannot command the behavior of others, yet one can command one's own response to them. One cannot dictate whether praise or criticism appears, yet one can determine whether the mind absorbs those words with humility or agitation. One cannot halt the arrival of adversity, yet one can decide whether adversity will be greeted with panic or with composed resilience. This realization transforms the individual's relationship with life. The mind ceases to behave like a desperate ruler attempting to govern an uncontrollable empire, and instead becomes a wise steward carefully tending the garden entrusted to it. The discipline of focusing on what one controls begins with the refinement of attention. Attention is the currency of consciousness, the invisible force that amplifies whatever it touches. When attention is squandered on speculation about distant possibilities or the judgments of unseen observers, the mind weakens its own effectiveness. When attention is directed inward toward deliberate action, thoughtful speech, and disciplined intention, It becomes concentrated power. The Stoic understands that greatness emerges not from frantic activity, but from focused effort aligned with clear principles. Consider the immense freedom that arises from this perspective. The individual no longer feels compelled to chase universal approval, an impossible task that entangles countless lives in disappointment. Instead, the reflective person asks a simpler and more profound question. Did I act with integrity according to my own standards of virtue? If the answer is affirmative, the opinion of the crowd loses its intimidating force. Applause becomes pleasant but unnecessary. Criticism becomes informative but not destructive. Reputation shifts from a fragile idol into a distant echo, while character remains the central concern. The focus on controllable elements also transforms the experience of uncertainty. The future is an elaborate tapestry woven from countless threads beyond human influence. Attempts to predict or dominate it often lead to frustration. Yet the Stoic reframes the relationship with the future entirely. Rather than attempting to control outcomes, the disciplined mind prepares itself to meet any outcome with readiness. Effort is invested in preparation, skill, and virtue rather than prediction. When tomorrow arrives carrying fortune or hardship, the prepared individual responds with competence rather than shock. This principle cultivates remarkable emotional stability. Much of emotional turbulence arises when expectations collide with reality. A person expects recognition, yet encounters indifference, expects ease, yet encounters difficulty, expects loyalty, yet encounters betrayal. By shifting focus toward controllable actions rather than anticipated outcomes, the Stoic dissolves this fragile dependence. Effort becomes the measure of success rather than circumstance. Progress becomes visible in discipline, patience, and resilience rather than external rewards. Another profound dimension of this habit lies in the management of time and mental energy. Life is brief and attention is finite. When the mind wastes hours contemplating matters beyond influence, it silently sacrifices opportunities for meaningful action. The Stoic, therefore, treats attention as a precious resource. Each moment becomes an opportunity to practice clarity, fairness, courage, or restraint. The mind no longer wanders endlessly through imagined scenarios or unresolved grievances. It returns repeatedly to the present task, sharpening concentration like a blade honed through repetition. Focusing on controllable actions also strengthens resilience during adversity. When difficulty arises, the undisciplined mind immediately asks why such misfortune occurred or who is responsible for it. These questions often lead into labyrinths of blame and bitterness. The Stoic asks a different question. What is the most honorable response available to me in this moment? This shift in perspective transforms adversity from a source of helplessness into a field of deliberate action. Even when circumstances remain harsh, the individual preserves dignity through choice. The distinction between control and influence also becomes clearer through reflection. While a person cannot command outcomes, actions may still influence them. Preparation influences performance, kindness influences relationships, persistence influences opportunity. Yet the Stoic recognizes that influence is not the same as control. Effort is invested wholeheartedly, yet the final result is accepted with composure. This delicate balance between effort and acceptance prevents both apathy and obsession. Through consistent practice, the mind develops a habit of immediate recognition. Whenever anxiety begins to rise, the reflective individual quietly asks whether the concern belongs to the realm of control. If the answer is negative, attention withdraws from the issue like a hand pulled gently away from flame. Energy returns to areas where action remains possible. This simple mental discipline prevents countless hours of unnecessary distress. The power of this habit becomes particularly visible in moments of conflict. When confronted with anger or hostility, many individuals instinctively attempt to change the other person's attitude. Yet emotions in another mind remain beyond direct command. The Stoic instead governs personal conduct, speaking calmly, listening attentively, responding thoughtfully. By maintaining composure within oneself, the individual preserves clarity and dignity regardless of the other person's behavior. Over time, this practice reshapes the entire architecture of the mind. To embrace hardship as training is to transform one's relationship with adversity from fearful avoidance into deliberate acceptance. In the Stoic tradition, difficulty is never viewed as a cruel interruption to comfort, but as a demanding instructor whose lessons shape the architecture of strength. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that every obstacle carries within it the raw material of growth. What appears at first as misfortune often becomes the very forge in which character is tempered. Those who achieve remarkable resilience do not wait for life to become gentle. They prepare themselves to become stronger. Human nature instinctively gravitates toward ease. Comfort seduces the mind with pleasant illusions of stability and control. When circumstances flow smoothly, when obstacles remain distant, the mind grows relaxed, sometimes careless. Discipline softens, vigilance fades, and resilience quietly weakens. Yet life rarely preserves such serenity for long. Sudden disruptions arrive, unexpected setbacks, harsh criticism, demanding responsibilities, moments of uncertainty that test patience and courage. For the unprepared mind, these challenges feel like unbearable burdens. For the Stoic, however, they appear as opportunities to practice strength. The Stoic perspective reframes hardship with remarkable clarity. Instead of asking why difficulty exists, the disciplined individual asks what strength can be cultivated through it. Every trial becomes a training ground for a particular virtue. Inconvenience sharpens patience. Loss deepens gratitude. Failure cultivates humility. Resistance strengthens perseverance. Each challenge, when approached with deliberate awareness, becomes a silent mentor guiding the development of inner power. Marcus Aurelius often reflected that the mind possesses an extraordinary ability. It can convert obstacles into instruments of progress. A barrier that halts the careless traveler becomes a stepping stone for the determined one. When frustration appears, the Stoic pauses and studies the situation with calm attention. What skill is being demanded? What quality of character is being tested? The difficulty itself reveals the answer. A demanding task invites discipline. A hostile encounter invites composure. An unexpected setback invites resilience. To embrace hardship as training requires a profound shift in perception. Instead of labeling discomfort as misfortune, the Stoic views it as preparation. Athletes willingly endure exhausting practice because they understand that strength cannot emerge without strain. Musicians patiently repeat difficult passages because mastery is born from persistence. In the same way, the Stoic treats the challenges of daily life as exercises in character development. The world becomes a vast training arena where patience, courage, discipline, and wisdom are continuously refined. Hardship also exposes the hidden strengths and weaknesses within the human spirit. In moments of ease, many qualities remain dormant. Courage rarely reveals itself when there is no danger. Patience remains untested when circumstances move effortlessly. Integrity remains invisible when choices carry no consequences. Difficulty acts like a mirror, revealing the true structure of character. It shows where discipline remains fragile and where resilience already stands firm. Through this revelation, the individual gains invaluable knowledge about the self. The process of strengthening character through hardship is gradual and deliberate. Each challenge adds a layer of resilience to the mind. When a person faces inconvenience without irritation, patience expands. When criticism is met with calm reflection rather than defensiveness, humility deepens. When a demanding task is approached with steady persistence rather than avoidance, discipline grows stronger. These small victories accumulate quietly, shaping a personality capable of remarkable endurance. Another profound gift hidden within hardship is perspective. Difficulty often strips away superficial concerns and reveals what truly matters. When circumstances become demanding, the mind learns to distinguish between trivial distractions and meaningful priorities. Complaints that once seemed important lose their weight. Gratitude emerges for simple stability, sincere relationships, and opportunities for growth. Hardship clarifies values by removing the illusions that comfort sometimes allows to flourish. The Stoic also recognizes that adversity strengthens emotional resilience. When the mind repeatedly encounters challenges and learns to navigate them with composure, fear gradually loses its authority. Situations that once provoked anxiety begin to feel manageable. The individual discovers that discomfort, while unpleasant, is rarely catastrophic. This realization builds quiet confidence. Life's unpredictability becomes less intimidating because the mind trusts its own capacity to respond. There is also a profound dignity in meeting hardship with courage. When individuals confront difficulty with integrity and determination, they inspire respect not only from others, but from themselves. Each moment of endurance becomes a testament to inner strength. The person begins to understand that true pride does not arise from comfort or privilege, but from the knowledge that one has faced difficulty with honor. The Stoic does not romanticize suffering or seek hardship unnecessarily. Instead, he accepts that difficulty is woven into the fabric of existence. Resistance to this reality produces bitterness, while acceptance transforms adversity into opportunity. When hardship arrives, the disciplined mind greets it not with resentment but with readiness. The question is no longer, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "How can this refine me?" This attitude cultivates remarkable perseverance. When challenges appear as meaningful training rather than cruel interruptions, motivation remains steady. The individual continues forward with determination because every step contributes to growth. Setbacks lose their discouraging power because they are recognized as part of the developmental process. Just as a blacksmith repeatedly strikes metal to strengthen it, life's pressures gradually forge a stronger mind. Hardship also deepens empathy. Individuals who have endured struggle with patience often develop greater compassion for others facing similar trials. They understand the weight of difficulty and the courage required to continue. This understanding fosters kindness, patience, and generosity in human relationships. The strength cultivated through adversity becomes not only a personal asset, but also a source of support for others. The Stoic approach ultimately reveals a powerful truth. Comfort may entertain the mind, but adversity educates it. Easy circumstances rarely demand the full expression of human potential. Difficulty, on the other hand, summons courage, ingenuity, patience, and determination. It calls forth qualities that might otherwise remain dormant. Through repeated encounters with challenge, the individual gradually discovers the remarkable resilience hidden within the human spirit. When this philosophy becomes deeply rooted, life itself transforms into a continuous workshop of character development. Every inconvenience becomes an exercise in patience. Every criticism becomes a lesson in humility. Every obstacle becomes a test of perseverance. Instead of fearing hardship, the Stoic welcomes its instruction and emerges stronger from its trials. And in this transformation lies one of the most powerful realizations of Stoic wisdom. Adversity is not the enemy of success, but the architect of it. Those who accept hardship as training do not merely survive life's challenges, they refine themselves through them, forging a character so resilient, disciplined, and composed that no obstacle can permanently diminish their progress. Asterisk.